What is up, Gangrene Nation, Gotham City, all my Jets fans? It's Thomas Christopher, aka Tommy Jets, here with another episode of the Jets Pulse. This is your weekly news, highlights, quotes, etc. about your New York Jets. So Robert Saleh spoke to the media today. CJ Mosley wasn't practicing. He's probably available for this week, but hard to tell right now. As we all know, Morgan Moses is 2 to 4 weeks. He won't be placed on injured reserve. That means we get to see the starting debut of Olufashinu, the first-round pick from the New York Jets, from Penn State, offensive tackle. He looked all right in limited showings last week when he had to step in for Morgan Moses. This week he gets the Denver Broncos, and it's kind of like similar game plan I think we have to play. But hey, before we get that, make sure you guys are liking the show, make sure you guys are commenting, and make sure you guys are subscribing to the channel. You can do that with the buttons down low. So just make sure you guys are doing that and helping a brother out for some Jets content. I do appreciate everybody watching the show. So let's get down to the brass tacks. And that's this week's matchup. I don't want to go any more in depth on the Patriots game. The Jets played a pretty perfect game overall, so there's no point in harping on that, even with the injuries. But funny enough, I think that the game plan for that game is actually incredibly important for their week 4 matchup against the Denver Broncos. The Jets enter this contest 2-1. The Denver Broncos will be 1-2. Thankfully, the Jets are playing at MetLife. They are not flying out to Mile High and potentially losing another player to a season-ending injury. God forbid, I will lose my mind if somebody from the Jets gets hurt in this matchup. This will be a cursed. If that happens, this is a cursed matchup for the Jets. And it's something that I am like begging that doesn't happen. You see my eyes going crazy. Like it can't happen. I will lose. I would genuinely freak out. I have to get serious now. I will freak out if the Jets lose somebody to injury here. With that said, big game. It's another game that's an easy win. It should be an easy win. It should be a must win. I consider all of these games must win games. Every game is a must win game. But this one has an underlying storyline, and that is the Sean Payton, Nathaniel Hackett drama, from last season. The Jets ended up winning that game last season, but they didn't have Aaron Rodgers. This time they'll have Aaron Rodgers, who we have to assume that he's looking for revenge. He didn't get a list last year. We saw Rodgers' comments on the situation with Sean Payton last year as well. You have to assume he is itching to just take this team apart by the seams. And I think he can do it. I genuinely think he's going to be able to do it. Listen, they have Patrick Surtain, probably one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL, if not the best right now. Him and Sauce Gardner are like 1A, 1B in my opinion. So that means Garrett Wilson's probably going to be blanketed. And let's be honest, I love Garrett Wilson, but he was kind of blanketed by Christian Gonzalez last week too. Had a couple catches. He rebounded, scored the touchdown on an amazing throw by Aaron Rodgers, probably one of the best throws I've ever seen in recent history. And he rebounded, but this week's interesting story because Patrick Surtain is a lot better than Gonzalez in my opinion. So it's interesting to see how that'll work, which means that somebody else is going to have to step up in the offense once again. We saw Allen Lazard do so last week. He needs to do so again this week. We saw Mike Williams get involved last week. We need to see more of him this week. More importantly, I really want to see another Tyler Conklin game. Conklin led all Jets players in receiving yards last game against the Patriots. I think he can do so again this game. I think it's either going to be him or one of the running backs. Breece Hall can definitely do it as well. In fact, Breece Hall's been playing better as a receiver than he has as a running back, which has been kind of bizarre. I don't know if anybody else has kind of noticed that he's getting outperformed by Braylon Allen in the running game. Passing game, though, Breece is Breece. I mean, come on. Did you guys see that one-handed snag the guy had? It's just incredible. It was an incredible play. But with that said, running lanes, he's not seeing them as well as you would hope. And to be honest, there has been some, I don't want to say rumblings, but there's been some, I've noticed a little bit more looking between the numbers that Brees has had some issues doing that. Obviously it didn't help that he was playing behind bad teams with Zach Wilson, but now that he's playing with Aaron Rodgers, it's not great to see him still can kind of struggle a little bit. On the flip side, Braylon Allen is just like, youngest player in the NFL, but that guy's like a man among boys, man. Like, he's just running people over. He's refusing to go down. He's seeing the lanes, the gap scheme well. It just takes, hits the gap and just takes off. He's a one cut guy. I've said before, he just reminds me of like a stronger Matt Forte. And we may see him get more agile as he continues to grow. Like, the kid still has so much room to grow into his frame, has so much room to expand his repertoire of skills. It's something to really pay attention to as we're going forward, because if Braylon Allen can continue to play well, there's a chance we might not see Brees in a Jets uniform once his contract ends. There's a really great chance, and I've said this from day one. From day one, I've said this, that Braylon Allen is the future of the Jets running backs. Now, I could be wrong. I may be wrong. It's always okay to be wrong. Everybody's wrong sometimes. But with that said, it seems like we're kind of heading towards that path, at least with the way he's been running. It's always, come on, 3 weeks, it's far too early for me to say. But if we see another game like how we saw Braylon play, how he's played, if he just keeps up his the way he's playing right now, it's hard to argue against putting Braylon Allen there. But we do need him or Brees, Tyler Conklin, Allen Lazard, Mike Williams, Xavier Gibson to step up. Now, an interesting thing is, and we kind of talked about this on the Jets Uncovered podcast. If you guys listen to that, if you didn't, make sure to check it out. You can find it on Jets Uncovered on the Undroppables Network with me, Midnight Mike, and Honest Abe. You also find it on my Twitter handle at ThomasCP_NFL. So we talked about this on the podcast, but Corley has only played 2 snaps throughout the season so far. I don't think that changes. I think I don't even know if he'll play a snap this week. Maybe he will. Maybe he won't. I don't think it's necessary though at this point. This is the problem that I've always said with Corley from the very beginning. I already didn't like the fact that he was, a non-early declare, aka a Ned. That already doesn't bode well for wide receivers. On top of that, he does not have a route tree to excel at the NFL level. I know that the comparisons, the nicknames to Debo Samuel, mini Debo. No, he's just not. He's not the Yak King. It's really easy to beat up on lesser competition. Let's just keep it real. When we're starting to see him kind of struggle in the NFL at that. He's looked decent in camp, but that's the thing. His routes have always been fairly basic, and if he can't perform well on more exaggerated routes, I guess I'll use that phrase, then he's not going to find a place in the NFL. He's got to get better. He's got to be more than just a guy who can take 1 yard in and then just kind of take off. He's not going to get many opportunities that way. With that said, I would like to see the Jets kind of try to use him on like a jet sweep or something along those lines. There's ways to get him involved, but this is kind of a black mark on Joe Douglas. I know Jet fans don't want to hear that because Jet fans think that this guy's like the second coming. But Joe Douglas has a lot of issues, and one of these issues is his drafting ability outside the first round. He's got some good late round picks, especially on the defensive side, but that could be more of a Robert Saleh thing. If it's not, then I do apologize. But with that said, this is now another wide receiver that he's kind of whiffing on. And it's somebody that they were begging to kind of trade up for and all this. And they were trying to trade up for him a lot earlier in the draft too. So this is just another bad call. Douglas finds a way to he just gets in love with certain players, Zach Wilson, and just refuses to see the light. I really wish we went after Luke McCaffrey. If we did that, we would have at least had a reliable slot option who we could actually use instead of Malachi Corley, who has played 2 snaps. Speaking of Joe Douglas, debacles, Haason Reddick has entered the news again, but this time it's because of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers went on the Pat McAfee show, and I know we all saw that article about, from an unnamed player agent who said that the Jets organization and staff was kind of in a disarray because of Aaron Rodgers. And Rodgers had an interesting comment on the McAfee show where he said that it was, probably Haason Reddick's, I think he used the word former agent. He alluded to the fact that Haason Reddick may have fired his agent, because he referred to him as like an ex-agent kind of a thing. Now, if that's true, which is interesting, we could see Haason Reddick back, or we could never see him again. This is where it gets to a point now. Now Rodgers is kind of taking shots through the media because they've been taking shots at him. And listen, I know some people are like, "Why would you do that, Aaron? Why would you do that?" I think it's the right thing to do. The guy hasn't shown up yet. It's we're going into week 4. The guy hasn't shown up anything. He's not really. I don't want to say he's undeserving of a contract because Reddick has been one of the better pass rushers in the NFL. I can absolutely admit that. But at the same time, you have proven nothing with the Jets, where we saw Matthew Judon when he got traded to the Falcons, he was going to work his way to a contract extension. That's the mindset you have to have, especially if you're a veteran, man. You're getting on that wrong side of 30 kind of track. You have to be, malleable. You have to be able to change with the times. You have to be versatile with your approaches. You have to be flexible with the people you're working with. And this is an issue, not just with Haason Reddick, not just with Reddick. It's an issue with Joe Douglas as well. Joe Douglas has a tendency to really stick it to the players, especially if he's very much a my way or the highway type of general manager, which works sometimes, works a lot more if you are a proven commodity in the NFL. It doesn't work as much if your team has had a losing record every time you've been a general manager. Every year you've been the general manager, I should say. Because of that, I see both sides of this. I'm very intrigued to see if Haason Reddick shows up. And at this time, we still haven't heard anything. I'm sorry, you guys will hear the clicking of a mouse as I'm trying to search this just to double check and make sure I'm not, behind on the times here as we're writing, as we're talking here. But it truly does seem like that Reddick, it's less and less likely that Haason Reddick will play for the Jets. And at this point, he's lost, per Dove Kleiman, he's lost over $8 million right now. I'm sure it's per somebody else. We all know that Dove likes to steal stuff. But that said, he's lost over $8 million just holding out. If he continues to hold out, he'll end up owing the Jets another season, which is what nobody wants. I'm assuming at some point he'll get traded more than not. The question just becomes at that point, who is going to trade for Haason Reddick? A disgruntled guy who hasn't even shown up to a team that, quite frankly, they look pretty good right now. Had probably their best one of the season. Granted, it was against a bad Patriots team. But if they can do the same thing against the Denver Broncos this week, which granted, it's a bad Denver Broncos team, but then they'll be 3-1 going into their matchup against Minnesota in Europe, which that's a crazy matchup. We'll talk about that next week. I don't want to get too much into that for now because it's next week. But there's a lot going on in favor of the Jets right now. And if Haason Reddick is not able to really put anything together, like, what are we doing here? Guys, let me know in the comments section what you're thinking about the Haason Reddick debacle, if he plays for the team, if he doesn't, and what are your thoughts about Aaron Rodgers' comments on the Pat McAfee show? Make sure you guys are commenting. As you're commenting, make sure to click that like button in the process just to let everybody kind of see the video and expand more for our other Jet fans. And subscribe, even share the video if you feel inclined to. I'd be greatly appreciative of that. So we kind of talked about, the Haason Reddick thing. We talked about the offense. Defensively, for this Broncos game, I think it's going to be very interesting because the Broncos, they have a litany of talented wide receivers, but they don't have, I don't think the scheme works for a lot of these guys to play well. And it's not just the wide receivers. I think it's also the offensive line that struggles as well. Sorry, not just the scheme, but the offensive line, which doesn't allow rookie quarterback Bo Nix to really have time to see the field. And, I saw Bo Nix at the Senior Bowl. I was present for that. I was present for some of the press conferences that he had. He does not take pressure well. He does not take questions about how he handles pressure well. So if the Jets, I know the Jets are a team that does not usually send pressure. But for this game, I think they have to kind of repeat what they did with the Patriots. They have to be able to send pressure and not just confuse Bo Nix, but make sure that he is unable to see the field, that he is under pressure, that he has to try to escape the pocket, make him move. Yes, Bo Nix can run. He is a mobile quarterback. But in order to win, they have to be able to throw the ball. Now, if the Jets already do have somewhat of a problem running the ball, the Denver Broncos have Julian McLaughlin, who I like. They also have Javonte Williams, who I loved coming out of college. I know injuries have kind of dampened his NFL career. But in terms for the Broncos, the Jets should be a good get-right game, considering that they haven't performed great against the run. Now, they did shut down the New England Patriots last week. But I think that's kind of a mixed bag between some, boneheaded plays by the offensive line, a penalty that probably shouldn't have been a penalty on, Ramondre Stevenson. And I think he ended up breaking his hand in the process or dislocating a finger or bruised something. He ended up hurting his hand. That much we know. I think that played a part. Antonio Gibson ended up running pretty well on the Jets, though, when in garbage time. But, it's garbage time. With that said, the Jets, I don't think that stopping the run game is completely necessary. They can't have these guys run all over them. Like, no team can. No team's going to have success if you get the ball ran all over you. With that said, they have to make the game they have to make Bo Nix win the game for the Broncos. The Jets, I don't think the Jets are going to lose this game. I think they have to make it so that Bo Nix can win the game for the Broncos. And I think that's a lot bigger of a task than he's able to do. At least this point in his career, he's still a rookie, although he's 25. He's one of the oldest rookies, but he's still a rookie nonetheless. So if the Jets defense can confuse him and blitz him, keep him on his toes, I think it'll lead to a lot of turnovers. The Jets aren't a team that gets too many turnovers, but I think this could be a game where that changes. MetLife pressure, the fans have to bring it as well. If you get the pressure from the fans, the pressure from the defense, that leads to mistakes for Bo Nix. Now, Courtland Sutton is probably going to be shadowed by Sauce Gardner. They're easily their best wide receiver. I think that it comes to a point where if they can stop him, I don't know if there's too many other options on the team that can really help. They got rid of Jerry Jeudy this offseason to the Cleveland Browns. I personally really do enjoy Marvin Mims, but Marvin Mims has not been able to show anything as of this time either. He's still just kind of a guy. And he does have a lot of talent, but at the same time, it's hard to be able to perform when you don't have the pieces around you. And I don't think that Mims and that offense really have the pieces around them to make it work. At least not under Sean Payton. Listen, I know I'm going to get some slack for this. By the way, let me know what you guys think, guys and gals think about my thoughts on this Denver Broncos game leading up and what my thoughts are. I would love to know your guys' thoughts as well. So please let me know in those comments. Make sure you guys are clicking that like button as well. With that said, I do want to get to probably my hottest take, and that's I don't think Sean Payton's a good coach. I think he really, really lucked into having an all-time great quarterback in Drew Brees, a bit underside. The one thing I do think he did well was scheme open passing lanes for a short quarterback, which helps. But the quarterback has to be able to read the defense too. I don't think Bo Nix can do that yet, or at all. So I think that kind of separates. And not only that, I think Sean Payton really got lucky with some of the defensive players that he had as well. It was just a great team. And we're kind of seeing his success in Denver not reach the same success that he had in New Orleans. And I think that is more of an indictment on him than it is on anything else. People can say Russell Wilson was washed last year during, with Sean Payton. They can say that he wasn't ready, that he looked like a shell of himself. I kind of disagree. I think that the schemes from the offensive team, schemes for the Broncos on offense were pretty bland and basic. They were really, they were really mayo-ish, mayonnaise, just plain, like white vinegar, just plain stuff. And I don't think we saw anything that really schemed a lot of guys open based on the looks that they were given on offense, and I think if the defense for the Jets can disguise their coverages and create pressure by bringing pressure, something they don't do too often, I think that the Jets will have success. I don't think the Jets will be able to rush for, and they might. I mean, I'll be honest, the Jets might be able to rush for and get pressure on this offensive line. But I think for them, creating different fronts, disguising their blitzes, creating packages specifically for certain downs and distances and times, I think will do wonders for the Jets in this game. With that said, obviously, I'm projecting a Jets win. It should be a must win. This should be an easy win. This should be a revenge game for all these guys. They should be aggravated and angry with what Sean Payton said about them, their coach, and just the team in general. So this is a must-win game for the Jets. If they go and win this game, they get 3 and they become 3-1, and then they face a true revenge game with Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings in the UK in Week 5. Is it 5? Yeah, it's 5. So for now, that's it for Tommy Jets from the Inner City Jets. This has been the Jets Pulse. Make sure you guys are liking, commenting, subscribing. It truly does mean a lot. I try to get back to everybody's comments as I can. Fortunately, my schedule is a little bit busy with the college football stuff, as most of you may know by now. I do travel a lot for the games. I go down to Florida. I'm actually going down to Florida this week during the hurricane. So hopefully, give me thoughts and prayers on that. I'd really appreciate that. And then next week, we're actually traveling to California for the Miami and Cal game. So that'll be a lot of fun stuff. And hopefully I'm up in time to see that Jets-Vikings game next week. But for now, this has been Tommy Jets and the Inner City Jets, and this is your Jets Pulse. Until next time, I appreciate you guys checking out the show.